I am an optimist. I have hopes and visions and expectations for the future of this city, but I'm also a realist. Don't say that I tore it down, because that'll be something that my opponents want to say. All right? I didn't tear the building down. I never owned the building. The city never owned the building. All right. We'll be real on this one, okay?
Okay, that's the whole purpose. That's the whole point.
Let me take a sip first, all right? I have literally looked at some things over the last few years and said, you know what? This is the right thing to do. If I do this right thing, I know I'm gonna make some people mad. And I've done it because it was the right thing to do. And during a campaign, you will hear everybody talk about all these promises. And the situation that I have is I have to actually follow up on my promises. I cannot make outlandish or ridiculous promises because I know that we have to balance a budget.
I mean, to us, that's like, man, we made it.
I was just telling him that off camera and on camera, like we made it. Like,
hey, listen, I feel like I made it. I'm talking with kings. I'm talking with royalty. I've met presidents. I've met presidents of the United States. Never met kings.
There you go.
So
right?
today,
you can check it off your bucket list.
Check it off. Check it off.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Haitian Kings Podcast. And then, as we always say, another special guest. Today we got Mayor Nic with us, and then he's gonna be able to bless us with another amazing conversation. How you doing, Mr. Nic?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm honored.
Well, thank you so much.
Can we have a toast before we get started?
Yeah, for sure. To
All
what?
right. I will say to health. You say to
Lake Charles?
Lake Charles.
I said to have a beautiful podcast.
All right, to health, Lake Charles, and a beautiful podcast.
There you
Cheers.
go.
There we go.
All right, let's get this thing started. Let's start from the very beginning. Who's Mr. Nic? Now, we're not talking about who you are right now. We're talking about who's Mr. Nic. Who's Mr. Nic at 5, 10, 15, and 18?
Wow. Well, at 5, I was a pretty typical 5-year-old here in Lake Charles, born and raised. At 10, I was enjoying t-ball, pretty typical 10-year-old. At 15, I started working, and I had a grandmother who was really important in my life. My father's mother, Mrs. Hunter, she was really more of a mother figure to me than anyone else in my life. And so about 12, 13 years old, she gave me choices. I could play sports, I could do homework, or I could work at the family's restaurant. My family owned a restaurant. And I could not sit at home and play Nintendo. That was not okay with my grandmother. And so I chose to actually start working. So about 12 or 13, I started going into my family's restaurant, sweeping floors, washing dishes. And it was a good experience. A lot of good work ethic, learning how to work with people, different types of people. It was a very good experience. I loved it. Still love the restaurant business today. And my wife and I, we still own a majority share in the restaurant today. And then as life progressed, I thought I was going to be in the restaurant business forever. In my mid-20s, I realized that I probably didn't want to have multiple restaurants, and I got interested in other stuff in the community. I was studying history at McNeese, the local college here, and in my studies at McNeese, I started getting interested in political history, Louisiana political history. There's some pretty colorful characters in Louisiana's political history, and I realized that if some of these jokers could do what they did and make some good things happen, I could probably do that as well. So fast forward to today. Most importantly, I'm a dad and I'm a husband and a Christian. And after that, I'm a mayor, I guess you would say. So I'm Mayor Lake Charles today.
Yeah, so what inspired you to pursue your career in politics?
Well, I kind of said it a moment ago, but I just got interested in what more I could do for this community that wasn't involved in being a businessman or the restaurant. And I got involved in some nonprofits and doing some stuff to help some nonprofit work, and really got interested in things that we could be doing better as a city, from quality of life standpoint, from things for kids, for families. And those are some things that really got me interested in the job. The previous mayor before me was mayor for 17 years. So when he decided to retire, I knew that was a job that I could really have an impact on. So I was 33 when I ran for mayor and won. I was actually 27 when I ran for my first office, which was a police juror, which is kind of like a county commissioner in other places. So I was 27 when I first got elected to office, and then 33 when I became mayor.
But if you got to think about it from somebody that came from the restaurant business, as you said, your family was part of a restaurant owner, and then you kind of grew up within that world. That's like a complete 180.
I don't know. I think the restaurant business was actually a pretty good training ground for politics, because you have to know how to handle high stress situations. You have to know how to talk to people. And that sounds like an easy thing, but to talk to people, you guys know it's probably not something that just comes immediately.
Absolutely.
It's a skill you develop. And so to walk through a dining room, to talk to customers that are happy, is easier to talk to customers that are not happy.
Yeah.
So when you go to a table and you see a customer that's not happy, to try to know how you can diffuse that, how can you make them happy, how can you change the situation. It was a pretty good training ground for politics.
But we actually had like a restaurant owner here before, like somebody that owned like multiple restaurants, and they, in a sense, they kind of talked in that same sense that you're talking about right now. But in politics, I'm sure in a sense you had a mentor, someone that can at least help you differentiate between the both. So who was that?
And mentors are very important. I encourage anyone in whatever career you're going into, restaurant, politics, find some people that you can use as mentors, because typically, if they've been through it and they're good people, they will want to share their experiences with you. So for me, my mentors were people like Senator Ronnie Johns, who was a former state senator from this area, former Mayor Willie Mount, former Mayor Randy Roach. Those were really, and still are today, really important people to me.
But I gotta ask you one more thing, because I know as adults, certain decisions we will make them, even though they're gonna affect our, like they don't only affect our life, they also affect our family and friends. So growing up, like I said, you had a restaurant, and then you decided to become like a member of the community and serve people. Whenever you decided to really go into politics, in a sense, how did your family took that news? Like, you're gonna go with politics? Like how did that conversation went?
Well, when I was 27 and first ran, I wasn't married, and I didn't have any children, so it was really a pretty short conversation. It was me looking in the mirror and saying, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I had a lot of friends that said, "You're crazy. It's going to be bad for business," and there is some truth to that. You know, if you're a good businessman, if you're a good restaurateur, you probably don't want to talk too much politics at the dinner table with your customers. But then when I was 33 and I wanted to run for mayor, that was different, because I had a wife and I had my first son on the way. He wasn't born yet. So we sat down and had a real serious conversation about it and how would life change. And my wife has been so supportive. She's my biggest cheerleader. She's my best friend. She's the love of my life, and she means a lot to me. And so her support has meant a lot.
Okay, so but being in the, well, when you run for mayor, so what was like something like, because like people usually say, hey, I want to run for office, but like sometimes you have misconception about it, and then when you get there, you say I'm gonna do so many changes, But then when you actually get there and you find out maybe like there is something, oh, maybe it's not that easy. Like kind of like two ways, like what's the biggest misconception about being a mayor, and what's the things you know before you get there.
The
And
obstacles
when
you have
you
to face.
when you get there, you're like, man, maybe I overstep my way in a sense. It's like
I buy too much than I can chew in a sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've always had really good people around me at City Hall. And one of the things I did when I became mayor is I did not go in and completely clean house or fire all of the department heads,
Okay.
the people that were leading the departments, because a lot of them were really doing a good job. And there was a lot of institutional knowledge. There's a lot of wisdom that comes along with being a department head for so many years. So I mentioned the previous mayor had been mayor for 17 years, so he had some people that have been there for a while. Some have changed now, but that was very helpful to me. So we didn't start on day one just not knowing how to make things happen.
Okay.
So that was helpful. But also, I realized today, especially right now, because we're in the middle of a campaign, talk is very cheap. People will promise you the world. People will promise you rainbows and unicorns tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it takes time to make things happen. Some of the things we're dealing with as a city, and some of the things that other countries are dealing with, other cities are dealing with, there are situations that have taken generations to get where they are today. So the idea that someone's going to come in and change everything tomorrow is probably not going to happen, especially in areas that have seen disinvestment and areas that have seen a population shift. There's a reason why over the last 60 or 70 years, certain areas of our city, certain areas of other cities have seen people move out of that area. So to get services back, to get things back into a community that has seen disinvestment, it takes time. And that has been, I always knew that it took time, but it's kind of sobering to see the amount of work you have to do to really turn that dial back and make things shift back. So that's something that was a bit of a revelation to me. Also, another revelation was, I always knew this, but when you're in the thick of it, it's different, is people are wonderful. I love my community, but people can be brutal sometimes, and if you are in a situation where you are connected to a certain segment of the population through whatever way, people may impose someone else's beliefs on you.
Projection.
What's that?
Like projection. They project.
Yeah, that's a good word, projection. And I don't like that because I'm Nic Hunter, and I'm no one else. I'm Nic Hunter, and so that's been difficult over the last few years, especially, is people will project other images of other people and say, well, then that must be him as well. And that's been tough to deal with.
But, and also, in a sense, I got to also ask you this, because basically you're a public servant.
Mm-hmm.
So which means you get to deal with a lot of demands. People requesting this, requesting that. And as you say, you are human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you cannot just snap your fingers and make things happen.
Right.
So which means doing your job, even though I'm sure you're doing the best that you can, but you cannot please everybody.
Right.
There's gonna be a lot of people who are like miscontent, or they're not happy, or feel like maybe you're not doing your job well enough. So how do you deal with all those demands, like all those people that's like unhappy with what you're doing, or all those people that are happy with what you're doing? Like people, we all got jobs in a way.
Yeah.
And then whenever you're trying your best, and then yet someone is not quite happy, and especially with somebody within your shoes, because you're a public servant, you got to please a whole bunch of people.
Right.
So how do you deal with that?
So that is a really good question, because coming from the restaurant business, that is something that's very different. Because working in a restaurant, a busy Friday or Saturday night, I could typically make 95% of the customers happy. I knew that they were going to get a good steak, and I knew that if something happened that went wrong, I could fix it like that. I can fix
Yeah.
it quick. That is not the case as mayor. As mayor, you're always going to have a segment of the population that just doesn't think you're doing things well, doesn't think you're doing things right. And I realize that that's okay. You know, you always want to strive to do the best you can, and I always strive to do the best I can. But for my own sanity and being able to actually continue the day-to-day operations and keep moving forward, I had to realize quickly that this is not where you're going to make 95% of the people happy. And honestly, if you are making 95% of the people happy, you're probably not doing anything.
So why am I going to explain that? I would have thought that's the goal.
No. Listen, it's true. I believe that some of the most non-controversial, popular politicians are some that have probably done the least. Because to really get things done, sometimes you have to do things that they're not going to please everybody.
So you got to step on toes in a sense.
You have to step on toes sometimes. I don't ever purposely try to step on toes, but if I believe that it's right for the city and it's moving the city forward, then I feel like I've got a responsibility to the next generation to make something happen. And you can study a problem to death. You can overanalyze a problem to death to where by the time you make a decision, the opportunity has passed and you no longer have that opportunity, or you study it so long and you want to make everybody happy that the initial dynamics have changed. And so, you know, I've seen that. I've seen where people in office sometimes plan and plan and plan and plan. Planning is okay, but action is more important than planning.
But, okay. Over the past of your last 2 terms, what would you say you're the most proud of?
Storm recovery. What we went through in did y'all live here in 2020,
Yes, we've been here
2021?
for the past 14 years.
Yes.
Okay. So what we went through in 2020 and 2021, I don't have to remind you,
Yeah, we saw it
but
all.
if anybody doesn't know watching, it was horrible. It was 4 federally declared natural disasters within a 10-month span, which is more than any other city in American history. And today, we still have remnants of the storms. There are still people that are struggling. There's still homes that need attention. But my God, when you drive around the city today versus 4 years ago,
It looks different, completely
I'm
different.
very proud. And that was hard work. That was teamwork. I don't mind saying that it was teamwork, but it takes someone leading the team. And I went to Washington, D.C., I went to Baton Rouge, and I fought very hard for us to get disaster aid from the federal government. And it took way too long, but we finally got it. And we're seeing that money finally hit the streets. So I could have sat back and let me tell you, that was a moment where I did step on some toes. Because there were some people that got upset with me for some things I was saying publicly. There were some people that got upset with me because I was not being a team player, but I called it the way I saw it, and I'm very proud of the results of that. The disaster aid has meant a lot for this community.
But in that sense, I gotta ask you though, like, what was your first thought when I'm sure you had to evacuate with your family. So what was your first thought whenever you came back in town, you drove around? Did you thought, man, I need to quit? That's too much. What was your first thought that crossed your mind?
So I stayed. My family did evacuate, but I stayed. And when I first walked around, when I exited the place that I was staying, the first couple blocks were actually not too bad. So I got a little false sense that it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, or we thought it could be. But then I really got into downtown, and I started walking through downtown, and I saw buildings that were 100 years old that were just rubble, yeah. So it's weird because when you're in that situation, you almost have to put your emotions and your humanity kind of on the side a little bit because you have a job to do. And there's really not time to be emotional about it. a lot of that came later. I remember that the first few days after the storms, every hour it was like literally putting out a fire. And there was finally a moment a few days into it where I sat down in my lazy boy and I had about an hour to just do nothing. And that's probably a moment where it really hit me all that it was. But yeah, there were some really dark moments after Hurricane Laura. I don't mind saying that there were some moments where I was wondering if we didn't get the federal aid that we needed, how could we recover? And thank God we got what we needed, and we're still putting that money on the street. So I don't want to say that we're 100% recovered. We're not 100% recovered. But there were some dark moments after Hurricane Laura, and I'm glad that those moments are behind me. But also, as a believer, I think that God puts challenges in front of you, and there's a way that you can handle them, and there's a way you can get through them. It just takes you being willing to find that way. And so I think we found that way. And we as a community, and in situations that I was in, I found ways to just keep moving forward. But those were some tough moments.
I know, like in the hurricane. I know after the hurricane, my house, got messed up in it too. And I can imagine, as the mayors, as the guys that's gonna make mostly all the decision, and then I'm pretty sure that was a tough moment for you. But then, like what you say, you're talking about the aid in a sense. But now you say the aids are finally here. So what's you planning on doing now? Because I can see, like, from me living in the church perspective, I can see a lot of things have changed. So what you feel like this money gonna do to even make Lakeshore even better?
Well, that's the hope, is that some of this disaster aid can be used to set up projects that will spark things in the city that we did not have before the storms. We have some money set aside for an indoor sports facility, and that's something that we're working on right now. We want to use federal disaster aid for that. That's something that could set up a whole new industry and a whole new economy for this area, for people traveling for basketball games or volleyball games. We have investments in housing in areas of the city that have not seen those types of investments in 50 years. Like back to what I was talking about how hard it is to get investment into some of these areas that have seen disinvestment. But one of the things about a lot of this federal money is you have to use it to help what's called low to moderate income,
Okay.
LMI individuals. And so it's going to help some of these neighborhoods that hadn't seen projects like this in 50 years. So the indoor sports facility is just one of a dozen. But those are some things that we're doing right now that we're focusing on. The housing aspect of it is pretty remarkable. The amount of money that's been invested in housing. In fact, in about 4 months, the city of Lake Charles will have more housing units online than we had before Hurricane Laura.
Nice.
And if you had told me that 4 years ago, that I'd be able to say that in 2025, I would have said no way. But it's through some of those efforts that we've been successful.
And I know you're building that thing downtown too. But so now the Capital One building, that was very
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
it was a monumental moment for since I've been here in Lake Charles, the Capitol building been there, and I know after the hurricane it destroyed, and now you had to tear it down. So, but that was something that was Lake Charles, and it's a what next right now that you're gonna be when you come to Lake Charles, there's gonna be
Another monument building.
yeah.
Well, don't say that I tore it down, because that'll be something that my opponents want to say. All right? I didn't tear the building down. I never owned the building. The city never owned the building. But I will comment on that, the building, because it was a very bittersweet thing to see it come down.
Yeah.
It was kind of a romantic thing, a nostalgic thing for many people that have been here forever that we had that building. I am an optimist. I have hopes and visions and, expectations for the future of this city. But I'm also a realist. And in the aftermath of the storms, the damage to that building combined with the real estate reality of the United States of America post-COVID, buildings like that were not even storm damaged in other cities are sitting vacant and people don't know what to do with them. So we had a situation where we had a building that was storm damaged that would cost probably $150 million to renovate. So what we did, what our administration did, is we went to the owners and we said, we want you to renovate this building. We would love to see this building renovated. They were fighting with their insurance company, trying to get money to renovate the building. And they said, when we settle with the insurance company, we'll put the money back in the building. And what we said was, okay, that's good. We appreciate you saying that, but we want you to set some money aside in case you don't do that. And so that's what we did. We made them set money aside and we put a timeline on them because I didn't want us to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, staring at that building the way it was after the storms. And I would encourage people to look up the Plaza Tower in New Orleans. The Plaza Tower in New Orleans is a building that had even more opportunity to get redeveloped than our building because it would have qualified for what's called historic tax credits. Our building wasn't old enough here. And it has sat untouched since Hurricane Katrina. It's literally falling apart. There's pieces of the building that are falling down, affecting the community around it. And now the city is going to have to go in and use city dollars, the city of New Orleans, to tear it down. And the dirt is not worth what it's going to cost to tear it down. So I know that was a really long explanation.
Yeah. I mean, that's good though.
But what some people want to say is that there was some magic wand or some magic person that was going to come tomorrow and save the building. And it just never happened. So I am an optimist, but I also live in reality. And so that building coming down was difficult. It was bittersweet. But every time I would drive an investor around Lake Charles who was interested in the city, and they would see that building, they'd say, what is that? Why is that building like that? Since the building's come down, every investor I've driven around the city, not one of them has said, you don't have a 20-story building, I can't invest here. So I think at the end of the day, having it come down was a tough thing, but it was not the worst option. The worst option would have been we're all enjoying a cocktail and a podcast 5 years from now, and we're still looking at that building the way it was.
It'd be even worse.
Yeah, it'd be even worse.
I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast because, like you said, from a civilian perspective, looking at it, so I can make my own mind why this is why they're not doing the job, why this building is not. I'm pretty sure they take the insurance money, they're not doing anything. So having people like you coming on the show and explain that, I think that'd be very valuable for people.
You know what I found? People like to use the word they a lot. They should do this. They should do that. Who is they?
Who is they?
Who is they? Do you mean the city? Should the city step in and spend $100 million, $150 million to renovate the building? Because we never own the building. So is that our responsibility? I don't think so. I don't think that the average citizen would appreciate us spending that kind of money to renovate that building just to save it, just to have it for the city. So I have found that, and it's not only that building, by the way. People will say they should do this a lot.
Yes.
And when you ask them who is they really don't. They don't have an
The
answer.
government.
Yeah.
But I got a very important question.
But I'll tell you what, I want to answer the question.
Sure, go ahead.
Because you said what can replace it from an iconic standpoint.
Yes.
What we're doing with the lakefront right now, I think is very iconic. And if you haven't visited the lakefront and seen Port Wonder, which is a new children's museum and a science and nature center, It's got kind of a wavy look to it.
Yeah.
Have you seen the
I've
building?
seen
Yeah,
it.
see that.
What do you think? You like it?
I love it.
Yeah,
Because I went on the beach all the time. I see it all the time.
I
Looks
like
good.
it. There's a new restaurant and microbrewery called Crying Eagle that's going up right next to it. So when people come into Lake Charles, it is true they will not see a 20-story tower, but they will see those brand new buildings on the lakefront. So I think that is a very iconic way and a very welcoming way that people can drive into the city of Lake
So there
Charles.
is no plan to have another building, a skyscraper in Lake Charles.
Not from the city, but if the Haitian Kings want to invest, we can discuss incentives. It's about $150 million for a 20-story building these days. So if the Haitian Kings want to do it, I'm all about it. I'm all ears.
But I got a very important question I kind of want to ask you because, as you know, we live in the South, Lake Charles, Louisiana. This is the South. We got the refineries around. They're all around. You can't miss them. Even if you drive around with your eyes closed, you'll see them. And as a person that worked in a refinery myself, I know how a lot of time people can tend to look at them. They're polluting our air. They're polluting our water. And I don't know if you saw recently what happened in California, where they had like a refinery that caught fire, and to it, the whole neighborhood had to be evacuated. The whole city had to be evacuated.
Yeah.
And as the city of Lake Charles, who's like surrounded by refineries, what do the city set in place to work with the refinery to make sure? I know we got OSHA, we got other companies that make sure those people operate how they should be.
Right.
But as the city itself, as something that can be directly affected if something goes south. What does the city of Lake Charles does to make sure like everything operates as it should be?
Before I answer what we do as a city, let me kind of talk to you just generally about my philosophy as a citizen, as a resident, as a dad. I like responsible and thorough regulation of companies. Some people will say, we need less regulation, we need to throw out the EPA, we need to throw out the DEQ. I say if they are doing their jobs and if they are enforcing laws that are on the books, that lets me sleep better at night as a dad, as a resident of this city. I know the amount of scrutiny and the amount of inspection that all of those facilities are under today is 100 times more than it was
A few years
40 and
ago.
50 years
I
ago.
can tell you that personally.
And
that's
let me
right.
tell you, if we're going to be very blunt and honest,
Sure.
50 years ago, it probably was a little bit of the Wild West out there.
It sure was.
And I am happy that we're not in those days anymore. I am happy that OSHA and EPA and DEQ is here, and I encourage them to do their job. As a dad, as a husband, as a citizen, I want them to do their job. So that's kind of that's what lets me sleep better at night, knowing that kind of scrutiny is under those industries. But as a mayor, we work with the Calcasieu Parish OEP, or Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. There are multiple meetings throughout the year between OEP and the cities and the industry. But we can always do things better. We can always learn. So anytime there's an incident, anytime something happens, whether it's in this community or another community, we have to learn from it. At the end of the day, the jobs, the economic development, it's hard to ignore what that has done for this community. So I just think we have to find ways to make sure that those industries are being good stewards, being good neighbors. I have found them to be very receptive to ideas from the city of Lake Charles. Like Port Wonder that I mentioned a moment ago is a brand new children's museum and science and nature center. And millions of dollars from that was donated from the industry. So that's something that we probably wouldn't have in this community if it wasn't for that industry. I also think that economic diversity is important. And petrochem has been the backbone of this community for 50, 60 years. It's going to continue to be important. But every investment that we can make in other areas of the city is important. That's why under our administration, Chenault International Airport
Yeah.
Yep.
has been really important. And I could call off about 6 new businesses that are located at Chenault today that weren't there 6 or 7 years ago. And those jobs are significant and they're good paying jobs. And they're not as connected to the price of one commodity like oil or gas.
Interesting. But as the mayor, current mayor of Lake Charles right now, you're about to be running for your third term, if I'm right. So what would you say sets you apart from the opposition?
Well, I like to say that, especially with some of the recent commentary I've heard, that I'm living in a very
I mentioned.
what's that?
I mentioned.
I'm living in reality, you know. And look, listen. During campaigns, it's the same anywhere in America. All's fair and a little more. And during a campaign, you will hear everybody talk about all these promises. And the situation that I have is I have to actually follow up on my promises. I cannot make outlandish or ridiculous promises because I know that we have to balance a budget. And so I would like to think that what we've been able to accomplish over the last 7 years, in spite of 2020 and 2021, in spite of high interest rates, high insurance, high mortgage rates, in spite of all that, what we've been able to accomplish is pretty remarkable. And we've done it without raising taxes. I know that sounds like a politician talking, but it's true. All that we have done, all that I can point to and talk about in this community, I can say we've done it without raising taxes. And someone asked me a couple months ago, what is your platform or what's your campaign strategy? And it's really my track record. Those are the 3 words, my track record. So that's what separates me from the others is talk is cheap. You know, there's a lot of hot air out there in the world, but to point at things and say, this happened, I did this, that's a result, that's tangible. That's different than just words. So I believe in results. And if you can't show results, if you can't point at something and say you did that, then it's real easy to talk about how it could have been or should have been done different.
Yeah, because you had your first term, so I'm guessing when you went for mayor, your first 4 years, you're still trying to navigate, trying to learn the things. Second term, you got really comfortable now, so you know who to call, where to go. So as a third term, so things should be even more easy. And then, but so for somebody that's from the outside looking in, to be like, man, so for 8 years, because like you said, it's so hard to see because everything is slow. And then somebody else come in and then with those crazy, like, hey, I'm gonna build 20 houses
tomorrow.
So it's easy to be like, maybe like I want to go with this guy, but you can't make those promises because you
know better.
You've been there.
Yeah.
You just know, like, there is no way. If I say I'm gonna build this tomorrow, I know I can't do it. So, but that's why I can see where people just like somebody come in and it'd be easier for them to just
make false promises.
Yeah. And what you're speaking is exactly what I said over the last 24 hours. Because someone had made this ridiculous promise about what they were going to do with salaries, and it sounds great. It sounds wonderful. But there's one of 3 things that will happen if some of those ridiculous promises actually come to fruition. Either number 1, you are drastically cutting other things that are happening in the community. Like you're cutting services, you're cutting quality of life, you're cutting out parks, you're cutting out arts and humanities, you're cutting out a lot of things. You're raising taxes, or you're making a false promise. And I don't want to do those things. So it would be easy for me and kind of expedient for me to just say that, oh yeah, okay, if you give me another term, we'll do all those things. But I believe I'm going to get reelected. I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic that I'm going to get reelected. So I know that what I say today, in 6 months, I have to actually answer to. And so I'm careful to make realistic promises to people.
But I got to ask you this, though, as in a sense, the man in charge, and as you're saying, you want to be reelected. And as the man showed them, sometimes you gotta step in toes. As you said, after the hurricane, you have to come back here and step on certain toes to make the hard decisions. So how do you juggle stepping on some toes but not too many toes? Because guess what? If I make too many people mad, like election's gonna be coming around, and I'm gonna be the bad guy to blame. How do you juggle all this? How do you balance it out?
It's a good question. It depends on the situation. If it's something that really means a lot to the city, and if it's the right thing to do, I know that sounds kind of
Cliche.
simple or maybe a little too easy, but I have literally looked at some things over the last few years and said, you know what, this is the right thing to do. If I do this right thing, I know I'm going to make some people mad, and I've done it because it was the right thing to do. But I never go out of my way to try to find opportunities to make people mad or ruffle feathers. But I'll go back to what I said a few minutes ago. Some of the most impactful, effective leaders have sometimes had to make decisions that made people mad, and it's not fun to do. I've probably lost some friends over the last 7 years, and I don't like that. But I've also gained a lot of friends over the last 7 years. So it just depends on the situation, the severity of it, and as long as I'm doing what I think is right, and as long as I can literally put my head on my pillow at night and go to sleep saying that I made certain decisions because I thought they were the right thing to do, that's been important to me.
So if you get reelected, what will be your top priority for the third term?
Well, we've got to have continued storm recovery, and we've got to get a lot of these blighted buildings mitigated if they can be repaired, and if federal money can be used to repair them, then I'm okay with that. But we can't let these things hang around forever. So storm recovery is going to be important. Seeing a lot of that federal money actually hit the streets with some of those projects that we were talking about is very important to me. It takes a long time for the federal regulations and all the red tape you have to get through. I worked really hard to get that money, and this is one of a dozen reasons why I want to run again. But I worked really hard to get that money, and I would like to be the guy that actually sees it get spent, because I've also noticed that people will come into office and take credit for all the great things that are happening that started before them.
Yeah.
And so selfishly, I'd like to be there to actually see these projects that we set up happen and break ground.
But the thing is, heavy is the crown. Outside of that, what would make you want to keep carrying the crown for another, 4 or 5 years?
4 years. So I mentioned that when I first ran for mayor, I was 33 and I had my first son on the way. So my initial desire to run for mayor was because I wanted to see immediate change. I want to see it today, and I want to see it for me and my wife and my friends and my family. Today, I now have a 7-year-old son, 4-year-old girl, and a 6-week-old girl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So I want to be mayor for the next generation, and I want to be mayor to set this place up and leave this place better for the next generation. And I do believe there comes a time to pass the torch. But I think that for me, in the situation right now in the city of Lake Charles, I think that another 4 years is an opportunity to keep doing some pretty amazing work. And I hope I'm given the opportunity.
Okay, given the opportunity, as you said, going in your third term, let's just say if you had to go back on the previous terms and see anything that you perhaps maybe mishandled, what would it be?
All right, we'll be real on this one, okay?
Okay, that's the whole purpose. That's the whole point.
Let me take a sip first, all right? So I will admit that when COVID first popped up in the world, I probably didn't take it as seriously as
I don't think no one did.
well, but I look back and I remember my wife had a friend from Shreveport who was texting her about all she needed to go buy in the grocery store. And she needed to go buy
Toilet paper.
Gloves, sanitizer, all this stuff. And she came home. I said, Becky, you're being ridiculous. This thing's in China. It's not going to come here. We're going to be fine. So in retrospect, that's something I probably could have taken more seriously initially. But I do remember one of the scariest phone calls I've ever received as mayor did not have to do with the natural disasters, storms. I remember exactly where I was, Walmart parking lot. And I remember I got a call from the chief medical officer of one of our hospitals. And he said, hey, Nick, I just want to let you know if something doesn't change really quick, we're about to run out of hospital beds at the hospital. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because I knew that things were escalating. I knew things were getting worse. But when he made that, and this is someone who is my friend, who is not an alarmist, who's not dramatic. And when he made that call to me, I remember thinking, oh my God, this is serious, you know? So in retrospect, to go back and, you know, I don't think there's necessarily anything we could have done to make it change or make it different here, but I probably could have taken it seriously a little bit earlier than I did.
Yeah, but I mean, in a sense though, because we never used to pandemic and to that scale before.
Yeah.
So nobody really expect, even like they had people that believed it. They got some people who was like, it's like you said, I had the same thing, like, it's in China, it's not gonna make it here.
Yeah.
I don't think like, I'm pretty sure like it was like 80% of the people didn't even think like this thing was gonna be like the way it is, the way it was at the time. So there is no.
And that was a really tough time because there was a lot of, it was very political, and there were a lot of differing opinions about how to handle it, what you should and shouldn't do. But we did the best we could. I'm very happy that we're in 2025 and not in 2020. Let me tell you guys, 2020 was a rough year.
Yes.
If we can make it through 2020 and 2021, I don't want to jinx us, but I don't know what we couldn't make it through.
I don't know if you're heavy into social media. I'm not neither, but my partner actually showed me something on this guy thing. Hey Siri, what's your prediction for 2025 or something like that? I don't know if you saw that. Oh, that was crazy. Have anybody else here saw this? Just me.
Just you.
Oh, okay. It was like, what's your prediction for 2020? And then the 2025, and then the Siri prediction was 2025. The South between Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi about to get hit with a Category 6 hurricane or some stuff. Yeah, I gotta send it to you. No, honestly, I'm not making this up. I'm not making this up. But honestly, though,
yeah, we can't have another one like one of those no more.
Well, you know, when it comes to stuff like that, it's really, unfortunately, it's probably not if, it's when. I hope it's not this year. Hope it's not next year. But eventually, we're going to get hit by another hurricane. So that's why we've been so intentional and so aggressive about trying to spend money to make the city more resilient. And again, I don't want to turn into a politician on you, but I mean, the amount of money we've spent on our infrastructure, on our water system, on our electrical grid, on our housing, and not only spending money to get it back where it was before Hurricane Laura, but getting it back to be even stronger. And one quick example is inside the city limits in the freeze of February 2021, we lost water pressure for 5 days. That was a very stressful 5 days for a lot of people, myself included. After that event, we got together as a group and we said, what do we need to do with our water system? We invested over $20 million over 4 years. And what happened a couple weeks ago when we had the snow freeze, which was worse than 2021.
It's true.
We didn't lose water pressure for 1 day. We didn't have a boil advisory for 1 day inside the city of Lake Charles.
That's
so
true.
To me, that's where we can point and say we are stronger today than we were 5 years ago. And when the next hurricane hits, may not be tomorrow or next year, maybe 15, 20, 50 years from now, this city will be better prepared for it.
But I don't think, like what you said, I don't think this is you being a politician, because I would like to know I think people should know this thing, you know, like because now you got like news, people don't trust the news, you know,
Oh,
because you
yeah.
know, like you don't know what's too much information, you don't know what's real, what's fake. But when you got somebody like you saying, "Hey, this is what we've done," I don't think you being a politician. I think that's thing like people should know, like, "Hey, we better like," because I can see it truly because when it just the freeze that just happened, I didn't really lose water pressure.
Let me tell you something I learned about the media. The media likes a dramatic, sexy story. So destruction, things are going terrible, people are, dying in the streets. That's the kind of stuff the media wants to see. After Hurricane Laura, the media was here for a few days, and then they left because, by and large, we had our stuff together here. The media will not report, typically won't report to say, hey, we want to run a news story about how the water system did not fail. Think about it.
Yeah.
And the thing
The
is,
media, they want to run a story about when it does fail or when things go wrong.
but
And I get it, but that makes it so difficult for us to try to communicate with people to say, hey, this thing happened over the last 4 years and we've invested and look what didn't happen. So,
and that's the beauty in what we're currently doing. That's why I
Yeah.
love it so much.
thank
'cause
you.
we
Thank you
got
for the opportunity.
we have a chance to sit with the guy in charge and then to where he can tell his side of the story, the challenges that he faced, the tribulation he had to go through to make things happen. Because here we're not trying to push the negativity. We're not going to say the mayor Nic Hunter did this, and that bad to get people's attention. Of course, we know that attracts people is drama, but at the same time, as you were saying it, I didn't even think about it. My house didn't lose water pressure, and I remember in 2020 and 2021, I lost water pressure.
Yeah.
And then thing is, the story, what happened behind the curtains, nobody might not be paying attention to it, but the fact that you got to be here and say, hey, guess what? You got a chance to invest $20 million to make sure that didn't happen again. To where I guess in a sense, I'm not going to say get the credit, to at least people can at least acknowledge the work that's been done behind the curtains.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, like you were saying earlier, they not doing this, they not
Yeah.
doing that, but at least now they get to see they, quote unquote,
Well,
got something done.
And there's a lot of noise out there. And one of the things that I think is different today than 30 or 40 years ago, with media and social media, 30 or 40 years ago, if you wanted to get a message to people in Lake Charles, you could choose one or two media outlets and you could put a message out in those one or two outlets, and you knew that 90% of citizens would get that message. Today, the way people consume their media, consume their news, there's 1,000 different ways that they do it. So even though there's more connectivity from a social media standpoint, it's actually harder, I think, today to communicate with people because there's so much noise.
Yes.
They're bombarded with so many outlets that it's hard for local government sometimes to connect with them because you don't necessarily know which outlet they're going to listen to. Is it YouTube? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it the newspaper? Is it KPLC? 30 or 40 years ago, it was the newspaper or KPLC.
Yeah, and then now too, our time span is so short because people don't like 30 seconds. We're just next.
That's true, man. That's true. And listen, I like YouTube. I watch probably 75% of my news on YouTube because I can go and click through the stories that I want to click on.
Yeah.
And if it's a news story that's more than 8 or 9 minutes, I'm probably not clicking on it. I like my news stories to be 5 minutes. 5 minutes is a sweet spot.
Yeah.
If it's longer than 5 minutes, I don't know. Like this podcast, I hope people watch it. I don't know if I would sit and watch this podcast because we've been talking this long.
For people watch, we got a lot of views. A lot of people have been checking us out in a
That's
sense.
good.
Because like me personally, I check out a lot of podcasts. Like if there's something I'm interested in, of course I'm not gonna sit there and watch it pause to it. Like I put my whole world on pause. But at the gym, running, at work, wherever it might be, driving to work, I can put it on and just listen to it while I'm doing other things. But that's how I consume my information in a sense. But I got another question to actually ask you. Running for your third terms, like in a sense, is there perhaps anything like perhaps certain concerns people have been telling you about that you're planning of addressing in the third term?
Well, I don't think it's any surprises. I think it's the same stuff that I expected. People have expectations that you will be able to fix in several years stuff that has taken 40 or 50 years to get to that point. So I get it. I understand that. I know that people expect results and want results. And I just spoke a moment ago about how results are important. But no, I would say in the next term, we're going to keep doing what we have been doing. We're going to continue to see progress. We're going to continue to see investment in areas of the city that have seen disinvestment, because that's very important to me. It's very important to me that we have opportunity in every corner of the city, and so we'll continue to push that forward.
And also, people complain, you know that. But what steps has the mayor office set up in place to where people at least you can set up a place to where, like, if somebody got a complaint to it, they can get to you in a sense, so you can actually hear the complaints in a sense.
We have the mayor's action line, which is something that people can call into or they can email. And I try to review all of those. I try to answer personally as many as I can. Sometimes, if it's a small thing like, my trash didn't get picked up, I may not call that person to say, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm going to send the truck over. We'll just send the truck over and make sure it happens. But we have the mayor's action line, and that's the easiest way to get in touch with the mayor.
And what would that action line be? I don't know if you can recall that number.
MAL@cityoflc.us or 491-1381.
I had a chance to go. That's the first time ever, because when I went to that district meeting, was it like the district every Wednesday? To me, that was fascinating, because like, come from Haiti, like, stuff like this doesn't happen in Haiti.
Yeah.
You came to a city council meeting, right?
Yeah. To me, I was sitting there like a kid in a candy store. I was like, man, this is what they do here.
You don't have that like in
Oh.
You don't have like city council meetings?
I gotta pee. And I know we might think, okay, they making it more because it's Haiti. This is a third world country.
I'm sorry, this is funny. Man,
The rest of them. No, I gotta
hey, make sure you take the mic off, man. Hey,
I'm gonna just unplug this.
Oh yeah, just unplug. That's so funny, man. Let me put it like this to you. If you call the cops, they tell you, hey man, we don't have no gas. So,
Say that again.
if you call the cops, they tell you, hey man, we don't have no gas. I've been in Haiti for 22 years. I never recall somebody call, like, we don't have 911, but nobody ever called I don't even know the number, to be honest with you. I don't even know the number. I don't know if it's 411. I can't lie to you. I know it's not a thing, because when I come here to this country, to me, that's why I feel like, man, this is the greatest country. Because thinking about 2020, when the hurricane happened, 5 years later, man, you barely can see.
Yeah.
That
It's not over. Go back to the room.
man, you go back to, like, right now, you go back the hurricane, the earthquake that happened in Haiti, like 2010, and that's like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You still can see it.
You still can see it.
You still can see that was something like this happened. Man, it's just council minute. No, we don't have that. Like, where you can see, like, people like saying, like, the way they're putting pressure on you. You need to do this. I can call you for my trash. Hey, that's
Before
wonderful.
you leave, I want to ask you something. I've been over here writing them down.
Okay, you got some? All right.
What? Ask the question.
Okay, I only got like 4 of them, though. And they're nothing bad. It's nothing bad.
Well, that's all right.
First, I heard you talk about nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get into nonprofit? Like, how does that go?
My first suggestion is don't create a new nonprofit.
Okay,
Find one that's already existing,
that's something
you're passionate about, and go make it better or be a
Okay.
part of it.
Okay,
Because we have enough nonprofits
okay.
in this community. There's probably too many.
And where would you go? Like, where?
Go to United Way. Go to the Community Foundation. What are you passionate about?
You know how like we have Boys Village
Yeah.
for kids who
Yeah.
are in group homes and foster care and all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff I'm into. Because
Okay.
I was in that when I was a child.
So there's Family Youth Counseling Agency. Have you heard of that one?
I have. Is
Yeah.
it through? I feel like I've seen the building. Or
It's
like
on
the
Louis
sign.
Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would be a good place to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When is the re-election?
March 29th.
Who was your opponent? I know that's horrible.
I can't remember their names.
Okay.
Oh man, that man is so confident. He didn't even bother.
You were talking about Port Wonder. Is it true, because I've heard, is it true that there's going to be a Ferris wheel?
No.
I swear I
No,
heard
if you go by, there's like, cause I run all over there all the
I mean,
time.
I've seen the thing you were talking about,
Yeah.
but people
No,
keep telling me there's going to be a Ferris wheel.
no.
That's right.
Okay.
And I think that's it. Y'all go ahead.
All right.
No, let's resume it. I'm sorry, like that's what liquor make me pissed. I can't help it.
But that was
good,
that
though.
was funny though. That was
No, that was funny, but I gotta say this. As an immigrant myself, coming from Haiti, and I'm sure you can also witness to that. Like, this is the best country in the world. Of course, people are gonna complain. They're gonna complain about taxes, tariffs, and so on and so forth. The government
Yeah.
not doing this, the government not fixing the road. You name it. But coming to where I come from, that is the best country in the world.
Yes.
Every time I call 911, somebody pick up. That shit amazes me. I'm like,
Thank you.
But no, honestly though, it's kind of like what I was telling you earlier. We're from Haiti, which is a third world country. So the fact that we got the opportunity of sitting across from somebody like yourself, like the DA and the sheriff and so many other important people, we got a chance to pick their brain. Like in a sense, it kind of give me the who am I in a sense,
Yeah.
It leaves me starstruck in a sense. So I just wanted to say that, like saying that's why it made us laugh. Because like he said, hey, you call that way, like maybe we don't have
But
no
I'm
gas.
telling you, it was
Yeah.
wonderful because when I went over there, I'm sitting down and they had other people coming like to complain to the city or what's like what had they going on.
That is
And I look at-
amazing.
They got
It
the
really is.
screen with all this. They talking about all this. Man, I'm telling you, I was everywhere. And I'm like, to me, that was mind blowing. I think that's
It
a
really
great.
was.
I'll tell you something that I reminded myself after the storm, after Hurricane Laura. I was home and I did not have electricity. I did not have, the basic amenities that we have every day in the city. But I remember thinking to myself, you know what? I've got a roof over my head. I got water. I got food. And I've actually got it better today in the aftermath of that storm than a lot of people in this world have it right now, or may have it for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so I think we as Americans have to remember that yeah, we've got problems and we have things that we can be better at, but we've got to remember, man, especially compared to a lot of other places, we've got it pretty good.
Oh, yeah, for
and
sure.
and I want to tell you guys that I hope you have seen this from Lake Charles, but I really believe that this is a pretty welcoming community.
Yes.
I appreciate that y'all are here. I thank you for being here. I thank you for living here. I thank you for having careers here and having families here. And I hope that I'm not the only one that's expressed that to y'all.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you, man. That's really nice of you, honestly, though. But the thing is, we have a chance to. The fact that you got a chance to have somebody to complain to, someone to where you can just
Hey,
put that burden
I'm
on
the
them.
man.
So you can't be like, hey
Oh.
man, why is this not going on? That is a blessing within
Yeah.
itself. And as you were saying, America at its worst is like 90% better than the rest of the world.
Yes.
I think Winston Churchill had a quote where he was talking about democracy. And he said, democracy is one of the worst forms of government, but it's better than all the other ones. And
That's true.
That's what we got here in America. We got problems, but even with our problems, it's still better than a lot of other places.
Absolutely.
And you can see it at the border how many people that are trying to come to this country.
So
That's a good
I mean,
point,
that should
you know?
tells you everything you need to know right there. So which means whatever it is you're complaining or and being annoyed by, or they not doing it, they not doing that, it still puts you in a better position than most people. But I don't think people travel or perhaps pay attention to the rest of the world enough to recognize it.
Yeah.
Because whenever you go to certain countries where there's no light, because electricity 24/7, it's a new idea to us. So see how you guys went without like power for like 2-3 days and be like, oh my God, people feel like they were dying.
Yeah.
That's a normal thing in Haiti.
So I was talking with someone from Puerto Rico a couple months ago, and he was here and he was investing in something here in Lake Charles. and he was talking to me about how he got off the airplane. He was driving around the city, and my first thought was, oh, he's going to say that we still had storm damage, but he actually said, no. What y'all went through, I can't believe the way the city looks today, how good it looks only 4 years after what y'all went through. He said, in Puerto Rico, we still have multiple days where we don't have power. We have multiple days where simple things like the trash isn't getting picked up, and everywhere there's remnants of Hurricane Maria. He said, I'm amazed how Lake Charles is today, only 4 or 5 years after
Okay,
what y'all went
let me
through.
give you an example. Allow me to blow your mind. The reason most of us left Haiti was like we had an earthquake that happened in 2010 that pretty much destroyed the whole country. Till this day, I mean, what, 14 years ago?
15.
15, okay. You can go back. I think it was January 12th, so basically 15 years ago. If you go back to the country, we're talking about a country, not a city.
Yeah.
If I have to give you an estimation, 60% of the country still look the same after the hurricane. I mean, after the
15 years
earthquake.
later.
Yeah.
Yes.
What if you went to your home that you were in 2010? Would it look the same?
I
today
went there in 2017. The house still had cracks on it.
still? And what about your house?
Destroyed.
Destroyed?
Yeah.
So that means, in a sense, that's what I keep saying by like a certain, I guess, I don't want to say ungrateful, but it's just like, I guess, maybe a lack of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you were saying, we got hit by the Category 5 hurricane 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you look around the city, 80
Yeah.
to 90% of things got back to normal, or even got better.
Yeah.
And you don't even see. I don't ever see it.
They got a
You
few
know, like I said,
spots.
blue top. There's a blue top.
Blue tarps, yeah.
Man, they used to have it everywhere. I don't remember the last
No,
time I
no, they're
seen
gone.
one.
And then the thing is, it's
And
kind
then
of
Haiti,
like,
probably after 4 years, yeah, you will see a blue
and then
top.
that's the beauty of just not focusing on negativity. And the thing is, whenever you deal with somebody, I'm human, he's human, you're human. At the end of the day, we're not gonna be perfect. Nobody gonna sit there. If we go get 100 people and make them talk about us, I'm sure 10 to 15 gonna have something negative to say. So which means you're not perfect. But
Yeah.
whenever you tend to focus on the positive, like you were saying, if you look around, there's no more blue tops around. And as you were saying, you have to go to Washington D.C. and fight to get enough federal funds to come back home and fix it. That is
Yeah.
not something small. Because sometimes, a lot of time, in the midst of what we're doing, we tend to perhaps look at it as small. But from the outside, especially from people like us that come from Haiti, that is not small.
Yeah, this is big deal.
Well, and hearing y'all's perspective really means a lot because of where you grew up and that you have a different perspective. And by the way, it's not only people from other countries. I respect and really love to hear people's opinions from other cities. Like other cities that are doing different things. When they come to Lake Charles to visit, hey, tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. Tell me what you like about the city. Tell me what you don't like about the city. Tell me what you think we can do better. I don't have a monopoly on good ideas. So I mean that to you guys and anyone else. Anytime there's someone who sees an opportunity for ways that we can do things better, I'm all about it. I need to hear those.
And I know, like, people usually be like, man, like, if you talk about the things that you've done and be like, oh yeah, that's your job, that's what you're supposed to do. But like you said, you didn't have to. You could have just sat down and try to like pretend like you're doing something, but when you're actually not doing anything. And if you wanted to make people love you, like you said, you didn't have to step and nobody's there. So for that, and I thank you for doing the job that put Lake Charles from 2020 to 2024, where we can see, like, man, we can see there is progress. So I wanted to thank you for
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
that. So let's go back to I know, like, you wanted for your third terms, and then I go like a lot of what you want the people to know about yourself. They feel like maybe, like, you know, hear about all the noises.
Like the type of message where you can just say at the end,
Man,
this is Nic Hunter, I approve this message.
Nic Hunter approved this message.
Like that type of message.
That
Yeah.
type of message.
I would say I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about projecting images. You know, I'm Nic Hunter. You know, I'm not someone else, and unfortunately, in this day and age, politics has become very polarized. It's become very divisive, and there's kind of a line in the sand, and there's two sides. You know, I don't like that. I appreciate other points of view. I appreciate other voices at the table. We're not going to agree 100% of the time, and that's okay. But I hope that people can see that I've been having Lake Charles as my number one concern over the last 4 years, and there's a lot of things that you could say in an elected position where you say them because it's easy or politically expedient. You know, like this is what the party says you should say, so I'm going to say it. I haven't been that person. I've tried to say things because I really believe them. I've tried to have opinions and positions because Nic Hunter felt that way. I've never tried to be the person that's going to let some think tank or some dogma dictate who I am or what I believe. And I hope that has registered. I hope people see that. And so we'll see. I guess we'll see.
Oh, well,
And this is Nic Hunter, and you approve this message.
This is Nic Hunter. It's all
But just to get serious on it though, like at the end of it all, like whenever you're done, you retired, what would you want people to say about Nic Hunter, about the job he's done, or perhaps
your legacy.
your legacy? What would you want that
legacy.
to be?
Yeah.
It's a good question. So, do you like Star Wars?
Of course, I love Star Wars. I mean, you
Okay.
probably can't relate, but I can.
Well, how can I not with it? Man, that's big
Okay, why can you relate to Star Wars?
I don't know, but let's keep going.
I like Star Wars.
Yeah, I like
Okay.
And, George Lucas. created Star
Absolutely.
Wars.
Yeah.
So I was watching an interview with George Lucas about 10 years ago. He's a billionaire. He's created Star Wars, done amazing things. And the interviewer asked him that exact question. She said, "How do you want to be remembered?" And his answer was, "I want to be remembered as a good dad." And so for me, I love this city. It's important to me. But honestly, more important than the city is my family and my legacy at home. So if someone said, "How was Nic Hunter remembered?" I would hope before they talk about the city, or before that's the first thing that comes to mind, they would say, he was a good person. He was a good dad. He was a good husband, and he took care of his family. For me, that's the most important legacy that a man could have.
You got any message for the next generation coming up?
Be independent thinkers. Be independent thinkers. Don't let someone tell you the way you should think. Don't get inside a box. And actually, the advice that I'm giving, I think I am very optimistic and excited about the next generation, because I think that's actually one of the benefits of social media, and one of the benefits of this massive amounts of media is you can see different points of view. It's easy today to get on YouTube and find 100 different opinions about one thing.
True.
So I would encourage young people, the next generation, to be independent thinkers, think for yourself, and make up your own opinion about things.
Okay, that's gonna be my last question. Outside of your career, your politics career, what does Nic Hunter do for fun?
Oh man, I love hanging out with my family. I like playing Go Fish with my 7-year-old son. I like playing Nintendo Switch with my 7-year-old son. I used to beat him in Mario Kart. Then he got really good, and he started to beat me. Then it started to affect my ego.
Understandable. He doesn't have a job. I mean, he doesn't have like 1,000 people complaining to him every day.
But my ego was affected, man.
Yeah,
So,
I'm the same way.
but I like hanging with my family. I like movies. Like I said, I like Star Wars. I'm kind of a nerd. I like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I like it.
I like Steven Spielberg movies. I like listening to music, John Williams soundtracks. My musical tastes are kind of crazy, but that kind of stuff I enjoy. I enjoy just hanging out with my family.
It's like when your son beat you, did he talk smack to you?
He did. I'll tell you what. That's what really got me upset. Is I was letting him win at first because I was trying to be a good dad,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
he started talking smack to me,
Oh yeah.
like I couldn't really play. So then I said, "Oh, okay, you're gonna talk smack to me, then I am gonna start really playing." And then it got to the point where I really literally couldn't beat him. And so now, I don't know. I need to start practicing on
Oh yeah,
Mario.
my son do the same thing because he'd be like, I'd be like, we playing 2K and would have because I didn't never play 2K before, but
What's
started,
2K?
like basketball.
Okay.
So we started playing it, and they was good at it. And then I was kind of like talking about, man, oh, so you're gonna let a 7-year-old beat the 35-year-old? It's just like, I'm okay. That's what we're doing. I said,
man.
let me learn it, and I'll make you cry every day. Then
Yeah.
we just got competitive, and I love that. You know,
Yeah.
I don't let him win because you're a kid. Nah, I give it the tough love sometimes.
I know you have children. Do you have any children?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Well, I think being a dad is one of the
Oh,
most
it's one of the
fun jobs in
amazing.
the world.
It is one of the most
I know you
amazing
gotta
things.
say husband too. Husband is a good job, fun job.
I mean, the best thing ever, my man.
Well, I enjoy both jobs.
You enjoy both jobs.
But no, I guess we gotta leave it right there, man. And
You
the
know,
ladies,
anything you want to?
anything else you want to get off your chest?
Nah,
We feel like you got it all.
y'all knocked it out of the park. Thank you.
No, babe,
Thank you
look,
so
listen.
much for
You're
coming
welcome.
with us. I mean, to us, that's like, man, we made it.
I,
I mean,
was just telling him that off camera and on camera, like we made it. Like,
Hey, listen, I feel like I made it. I'm talking with kings. I'm talking with royalty. I've met presidents. I've met presidents of the United States. Never met kings.
there you go.
So
right?
today
you can check it off your
thank
bucket
you.
list.
Check it off. Check it off.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we had Mayor Nic Hunter here in the house with us. We had a great conversation. He blessed us by sitting on this chair and then addressing all our questions. And as per usual, if you guys got any questions, y'all can just put in the comments. And then, as per usual, follow, like, share, and subscribe. And once again,
and thank you so much, everybody, because if you feel like, I think like we covered pretty much.
we cover everything. Like, I don't feel like it's
If you
anything
feel
else.
like you didn't feel like there's a question, we didn't ask Mr. Hunter. So maybe we can always have him back in the podcast.
How about
and we
a year from now, hopefully,
Yeah.
we can have this conversation. I'll still be mayor. And we can do a follow-up.
Yeah.
There you
Hopefully,
go.
fingers crossed.
There
All
you
right.
go. There you go. Hey, I don't think you got anything to worry about. The fact that you don't even know the name of your competitors says everything that needs to be known. The fact that you don't even care, that says everything. And we're gonna leave it at that. And
right.
follow, like, share, and subscribe. And then once again, this is the Haitian King Podcast. That's what we do around here.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, man, that was amazing. Really.
That was amazing.
That was amazing.
Good.
I hope